Hey gang, I am Joe Edelman and welcome to The Last Frame Live. Tonight, we're going to bring some changes to The Last Frame and mix it up a little, but I've got some news announcements and of course, the photography Q&A. So, start typing. I'll do my best to answer all of your questions in the next 60 minutes. And by the way, if you're watching the replay, there are chapters listed below so that you can jump ahead to the sections of the show that interest you the most. And if you're watching live, you know the drill. Some of you have already started. Leave me a little note in the chat. Let me know who you are and where you're watching from. And if you're watching the replay, no worries. I appreciate you stopping by. Drop a comment below the video so that I know you were here. Already, who do we got here? We got Calvin up in Maine, Ty in New Jersey, Joe in Vista, California, Alvin down in Virginia, Ron is here from Thursday down under, and Lynn in New York, Eric in Ohio. I got Cooley in Indiana. Eric is still in Nashville. He hasn't figured out how to get out of town yet. Let's see, David in San Diego, Joe in Michigan, Sandra in Alberta, Larry's here from Missouri, Joshua in Kansas, and Cass in Brisbane. Also, Thursday down under. All of you are part of a growing global community of photographers in over 100 countries from around the world who tune in to watch The Last Frame every week. And for that, I'm going to work really hard to help you with your photography tonight. You know it would help a lot more people find out about The Last Frame. Do me a solid, hit that thumbs up below the video. The more thumbs up, the more YouTube recommends the show to other photographers. And of course, while you're down there, feel free to hit that share button. Let your photography friends know that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. Or you can go ahead and share the link, lastframe.live. It's below the video in the description if you need it. Or, it's not or, forget that. Twitter, Facebook, they're the fastest way to get the word out. All right, so listen, photo news. There's actually a lot of stuff that happened in the last week that is of interest. Now, you know, while I was down in imaging, somebody was talking to me about The Last Frame and kind of how I pick things for photo news since I don't do it all the time. And I actually had a really constructive, conversation about The Last Frame. And so what I decided to do is I am going to make it more of a point to make sure there's some photo news every week. But I've got to stay true to myself and what my teaching mission is. I'm not going to tell you that it will never include gear. So yeah, if somebody comes up with a camera that's worth talking about, we'll mention it. You know I usually mention them in passing. But really, it's a matter of the kind of photography news that is potentially going to help all of you, or at least some of you, with your photography or your marketing, etc. Right? So a couple of things. Instagram. They are literally down on their hands and knees begging for forgiveness at this point. In an Instagram story this week, the head of Instagram, I don't know what his official title is, but Adam Mosseri, he admitted, we got the mea culpa, that Instagram and Meta, they pushed video and Reels way too hard for a little over like a year now, right? So they claim that they have an even balance now between Reels and photos. So we'll see where this gets them, because ironically, the people that really, really loved Instagram still hate Reels. So even having an even balance is really not what most of us want, right? But, any way you look at it, in my opinion, I really do think that Instagram has done some irreparable damage. And also, listen close, all of this Instagram stuff has really highlighted a very important photography lesson. So yes, there's something that all of you can actually learn from this real fiasco that Instagram has done. So, to make money in this industry of photography, or for that matter, even just to build followers, right? You do what you do to the best of your ability. You continue to find new and unique ways to create and innovate. And then you find the people that are dumb enough to pay you for it or follow you because of it. To chase trends, you are choosing to have competition. And look, I hate to tell you, but the best that you can wind up as is a cheap Xerox copy of the original. And That's exactly what Instagram has done for the last year and a half. It essentially copied TikTok instead of trying to innovate on its own. You know, if they had any creative thoughts whatsoever, and they clearly didn't, they would have acknowledged that TikTok was winning the battle for eyeballs, and instead of just copying it and doing a really, really bad job, they would have gone on and worked on finding the next coolest thing and been the first to innovate with an image platform. But they didn't, and they failed, and they're hurting now. So, no sympathy for Instagram. They've got a long way to go to win back people's trust and to really get the eyeballs back. And the fact of the matter is, TikTok's not going away. TikTok has a huge audience. It's growing. It's going to be around for a while. But at the same time, TikTok's trying to experiment with stills to see if they can really put the crushing blow to Instagram. And they're not doing a particularly good job of that. So pay attention, because these mistakes that you see these companies making, they're great lessons for you. Also, in other news, Adobe Incorporated, their chief product officer, Scott Belsky, has categorically stated Adobe has never used its customer data, or more importantly, its customer content, to train artificial intelligence, AI. So the short piece of it is there was a big brouhaha recently because people realized that deep in the terms and conditions, there were statements that made it sound like they could do that. Adobe is insisting that those terms and conditions are old. They've been in place forever. They didn't account for AI, and that people are misinterpreting their intent. So they are changing them, of course, but in the meantime, they are assuring everyone, quote, "We have never, ever used anything in our storage to train a generative AI model," right? And of course, if you've been following any news with AI, because I know a lot of you are worried about it, or at least keeping an eye on it, which we should be keeping an eye on it, right? I'm not saying you should be using it yet in any way, shape, or form, unless you want to. But all of this follows on the heels of a couple of major lawsuits that have been filed against generative AI software companies like DALL-E and Stable Diffusion from a group of individual artists, as well as Getty Images, who have really filed these pretty massive lawsuits. And look, Adobe's been working with AI within its software for honestly quite a while now, right? And they've been doing beta testing. They've got the neural network section within Photoshop and some of the other programs. So indeed, you know, in our industry, we need to stay on high alert. We need to stay aware. I don't buy into the mentality that this is impending doom for, you know, everybody's livelihoods. It's just another piece of evolution, and we're going to see where it goes, right? Also, Capture One, in an effort to try and confuse every single one of its customers, announced a new pricing structure and loyalty program, or as they first called it and then changed it, loyalty scheme almost feels more appropriate. The program includes like 6 different pricing options. I think it's like 4 and 2, so that's 6, depending on when you purchase Capture One. And so look, this is just my opinion for what it's worth, but I'll tell you why I want to give you my opinion on this. I love Capture One software, but we photographers, as an industry, we all owe Adobe like a big apology for the grief that we gave them when they went to a subscription model. Look, I fully support that these companies have to be able to profit from their software, and they should. I'm one of the people that argued, you know, in support of Adobe doing what they did. Especially, I feel that they followed through well with innovation and new features. This is essentially what Capture One is trying to do a similar thing, so that instead of just getting a new version of the software every year, you'll be getting new features all the time as they finish them in beta testing. And I want to make it clear, I do believe that Capture One is doing their absolute best to help photographers get just what they need. But come on, Capture One. You need to work a lot better on the planning and the pricing structures, because you're getting to the point where you're going to have to go out and hire a whole bunch of YouTube influencers to create videos just to explain the pricing structures. Keep it simple, stupid, right? Period. period. Now, why did I want to talk about that? Look, for all of you, and this is a conversation I also had several times at Imaging USA the last few days, we as photographers, we as consumers, we need to do a whole lot better job at holding camera manufacturers, lighting manufacturers, lighting modifier companies, all of these companies in our industry. We need to do a much better job at holding them accountable to our needs and to the way that we work. We don't. We don't talk back to them enough. We just go on social media and bitch. That's all we do. But we need to talk with these companies. So, when you do have opportunities for trade shows and things like that, you do need to have conversations. You need to attend these shows. You need to engage with these companies and let them know what your frustrations are and what your needs are. That's the only way it's really going to get better. Also in the news, Sony has announced a 14% across the board price increase on all of its products, not just cameras, in Japan. But here's the thing. So this also follows Canon having made a similar announcement last October. But this price increase is going to mark the second increase by Sony in 5 months. And it's going to reflect a 22% total price increase. So we're still waiting to find out how much that's going to affect other markets like US, Europe, Australia. But if I was a betting man, I'd say some of that's going to filter our way. Also, just for what it's worth, the annual BCN rankings for camera sales have been released in Japan. Not really big surprises, but good news for Canon. For DSLR sales, yes, there are still DSLRs out there. Canon accounted for, in 2022, Canon accounted for 76.8% of the DSLR market. That was up from 59.8% the year before. Nikon captured the second spot at 17.2%, which was a drop from 33.9%. Again, this is just DSLRs. And then, Ricoh, the maker of Pentax, Mr. Joe Dwizzle, I know you're here. They were in third place with a whopping 5.7% of the Japanese market, which, by the way, is 0.1% down from their share in 2021. But for mirrorless sales, this is where Canon gets the big attaboy this time around. They are back on top. Now, again, just in Japan, they're back on top with a much smaller margin than what they have in the DSLR categories, but Canon accounted for 31.7% of the mirrorless camera sales, which was up from like 28% in 2021. Sony's in second place with 29.4%. And by the way, in 2021, Sony was number one with 32%. And yes, OM Digital Solutions comes in with a solid third place at a 14.3% market share, which is up almost 2 full points from where it was in 2021. So that's kind of a big deal. It shows that OM Systems is indeed headed in the right direction with what they're doing. Look, they're not going to, have world dominance in cameras at any point in time. But the point is, their numbers are moving in the right direction. Sales are good. So for all of you Micro Four Thirds users, you should be very happy. There's a future. The company is clearly headed in the right direction. All right. So next up for you guys, let's switch gears a little bit. My teaching updates. So obviously I just came back from Imaging USA in Nashville. I got to tell you, number one, for all of you that I got to meet, thank you for saying hi. If you were in my workshops on Saturday, thank you. And thank you for, kind of going along with the chaos, especially in the afternoon class where we wound up taking on an extra 22 people because unfortunately an instructor had to cancel at the last minute for personal reasons. So we just kind of absorbed that workshop into ours. And for the 700 plus people who got up and came to my talk at 8 a.m. on Sunday morning. Wow, like seriously, thank you. So here, just to brag a little bit, I'll show you just a couple of pictures. These were from my platform talk on Sunday morning. This was the audience. How cool was it that they decorated the stage and set the lighting to match my red shirt? Unfortunately, they didn't really do it for me. That's the color they had already picked, but still, I'm glad. It was a great audience, really, really well engaged. a lot of buzz about it. It was a lot of fun. I got to tell all of you that didn't make it, do everything you can. You got a year to plan to make next year's event. It happens usually the third weekend in January. They probably have the exact dates up already, but I believe next year it's going to be in Memphis, Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. So we're moving to the other side of the state. But the educational quality and the depth of education at Imaging USA, hands down, it's the best there is. And I know there's a lot of buzz happening with WPPI right now. I'm doing a Photowalk at WPPI. I'll get myself in trouble for saying what I just said, but I stand by it. Hands down, the best out there. Oh, and it's also worth noting here, sometimes you guys think that we're all competitors, but I did get to hang out with some of my very, very good friends. And I mean, literally hang out. We didn't just get together for 2 seconds for the picture. In this shot, a lot of you might recognize Unmish, who I talk about a lot. Irene, who I've interviewed on Talk Chat. Manny, who, we've done photo walks together. We go back a ways. And 2 of my new friends, Castlight Productions, and I know I'm going to pronounce her name wrong, so I'm not even going to try, but check out her handle. Absolutely brilliant fashion style bikini images, like incredible stuff. And then at the party, there's Irene again, Roberto Valenzuela, Robert Vanelli from Skylum Luminar. Actually, the 3 people are also from Skylum Luminar. So it was a great time. But do what you can to get yourself to one of these events. And look, it's not about the trade show. The trade show was back in full swing this year. Had a huge trade show, lots of vendors, really, really awesome. A lot of the vendors were doing photo walks. They had in-booth demos, all that kind of stuff. But just the opportunity to be able to touch and feel and see the gear and the accessories and the learning experiences are incredible. And you should know, if you join PPA now that we're in 2023, you can attend your first Imaging USA, which will be Imaging 2024, for free. Now, yes, you got to pay like airfare or hotel, etc. But the conference fee, you don't pay a dime. You get a full conference pass for everything at the conference, 0 cost. Not to mention, of course, the equipment insurance and all that kind of stuff. And that's not a sponsored statement. I'm not getting paid to say that. I will add a link below the video when we're done. If you want to learn more and register, where you can get yourself actually a free month on top of everything else that they're giving you. So I encourage you to check that out. So next up for me, though, the very beginning of March, it'll be March 6th that I'll be doing my photo walk, but it's WPPI. The conference, or the show, I should say, runs 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm doing my photo walk on the 6th, okay? It is going to be called Posing Without Posing. So obviously it's the anti-pose. So how do you make people look interesting? How do you do cool stuff with them without using the same 10 poses over and over and over again, right? So I'll drop the link in here on this page. If you're interested in going, number 1, it's in Vegas. How can you go wrong? Number 2, there's a couple discounts here. You can get a buy one, get one free, and then $50 off a third pass if you use the code WPPIBFF. You can get a $40 discount on a conference pass or a free trade show floor pass. And this year, they're adding lots of cool stuff to WPPI. There's going to be giveaways every single hour on the trade show floor. All kind of cool stuff. So look for that coming up. And then in April, I've been talking about this, and I got to meet a lot of the people that are involved with this program, and also a lot of people that are attending this program and who have attended it in the past. I'm going to be down in Dallas for a week. So it's like April, I believe, 23rd to the 28th at Texas School. What's really cool about this, it's a 5-day program. It's Monday through Friday is the program. All day, there's partying and events and dinners at night, so there's a social aspect too, but you are with one instructor for the entire week. So if you want to be able to do a serious deep dive into everything I do, from concept to planning to setting it up to shooting, indoors, outdoors, post-processing, retouching, and marketing. This is the event. And here's the insane part. That whole week is only $750. So all the information, I dropped a link in there. You should check it out. I strongly encourage you. It's going to be a really, really fun time. I am looking forward to the ability to have a small group of people and work one-on-one for 5 days, right? And then last piece, and we'll get into the rest of our show here. Thursday night, tomorrow night, it's part one of a 2-part Smart Marketing for Photographers in 2023. So this is best for photographers that are still trying to grow their businesses or photographers that are about to take that leap into business. We're going to get deep into what you need to be doing in 2023 with social media, websites, etc. How you should be approaching all this, where you need to put most of your time and effort, what your first steps are, what should be your marketing workflow. And then, we're going to get all the way into the nitty-gritty of like how often should you be posting and all of that kind of stuff in today's climate. So I'll share that link for those of you that haven't signed up yet. That's tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern time. If you can't make the actual presentation time, once you sign up, you will receive an email about an hour and a half to 2 hours after the presentation. You'll be able to view it for 72 hours after that. But of course, the benefit of being there live is you get to ask questions. And I encourage anybody that takes any kind of class, have an agenda. What are the things that you really want to get from that, just in case the instructor doesn't talk about those specific things, right? Okay, so next on the list, that's all the teaching updates. That's all the news. Let's do some Q&A, and we'll see how the Q&A goes. I do have a picture for you. I want to show you how I shot it. It's the image that's on the cover slide, but I am going to scroll back here. So again, if you're here, hopefully you're here because you're looking to improve, and there are some things that you would like to work on, okay? I have one question that came in early. I'll hit that one first. For the rest of you, go ahead and start typing. How can I help you tonight? So I had a photographer actually stop me when I got to Philly. So this particular set of flights, I wound up having people on the plane that were from this area that were going to Nashville and coming back at the same time. But while I was in the airport, I had just gotten all my baggage and I met a photographer. So I want to say hi to John, okay? John is fairly new to the business, right? And he is already at that point where he's kind of tipped the barrel and he is now taking on clients, etc. And his concern is with regards to pricing, which is a thing that many new and young photographers are challenged by. And what he asked me was, okay, listen, I've been charging, I know not enough, as he put it, for doing corporate headshots. And basically he was charging like $50 a session, which of course, my chin dropped when I heard that. And what he wanted to know was, how long should he be shooting before he raises that price? And my answer to him was pretty much not even another 2 minutes before he raises that price. So there's a couple things. And tomorrow night, I will talk a little bit more about this stuff in the smart marketing class. But so I'm not going to get into how do you do your prices. In fact, I'll be very serious. If you want to really learn how to set pricing, I'll give you a 50,000-foot view anytime. Anytime you want to ask me, I'll give you that 50,000-foot view. And then I'm going to tell you, join PPA, because PPA not only has some excellent business resources about setting up a business plan and your pricing, but it also has a pricing calculator that is just tremendous. And honestly, I have used that very tool for quite some time for any of my commissioned work. So I strongly encourage it. But here's the thing that I want you to understand about the charging cheap and then raising your prices, right? An example that I use a lot is Kohl's. For those of you that aren't in the United States, Kohl's is a smaller department store chain. It's not as big as like the Macy's department stores, but and it's worth noting that Kohl's is in serious financial trouble. So what I'm about to explain that they do, this is part of why they're in serious financial trouble. But women here in the United States love Kohl's. It's not quite what it used to be. So you also hear a lot of women now say, well, I used to love it a lot more, but it's nowhere near as good as it used to be. And part of that reasoning that they think that way is because Kohl's routinely did two things on an ongoing basis to incentivize shoppers to come to their store. One, they would send out these postcards. And when you get the postcard, you either rub off, it's like a scratch thing, or you peel off the sticker and you could get a 10, a 20, or 30% off coupon. And they sent these out multiple times a year. So essentially what they were doing, and my wife is the perfect example. She loves Kohl's, but she will not go to Kohl's unless she has a 30% off discount coupon. 10%, not good enough. 20%, not good enough. No coupon, you got to be an idiot to go without coupon. So you only go with a 30% off coupon. So they essentially trained their customers, don't shop unless you get the 30%. And then they do certain incentivized times during the year where you can go, and if you spend a certain amount of money, you get what they call Kohl's Cash, which is a piece of paper that's like the equivalent of $10 back. And then if you spend enough, you can get $20, $30 worth of Kohl's Cash. And then you have like a 10-day window to go back and use that, right? Now, back in the day, if you were patient, you could not only get the 30% off coupon, but you could get Kohl's Cash all at the same time. So it's like bonanza. And believe me, my wife, she mastered this. We would go to Kohl's, we would spend $300 on stuff and actually only take $15 out of our wallet in the process, right? So now Kohl's hardly ever runs their sales because they can't afford to. And they're on the verge of bankruptcy. So what's the moral here for photographers? It's real simple. What they did is they showed people the real value of their products. They showed people the real prices of their products. So as photographers, if you start out at $50 or $100, whatever, if you're just picking random numbers, or worse yet, if you are looking at what you perceive to be your competition in your area, and they're showing prices on their websites, which, by the way, means they're not too smart to begin with. They're just lazy. But if they're showing prices and you base your prices on their prices, like trying to undercut them just a little bit, you think you're smart because you're undercutting them just a little bit. So you can say, they're expensive and I'm cheaper. Do you really want to be known as cheaper as a photographer? For that matter, do you really want to be known as less expensive? Why would you not want to be known as the better photographer, the nicer photographer, the photographer who goes above and beyond for his or her clients? So when you build your pricing that way, random numbers or just trying to compete and slightly undercut other people in your area, you are showing the worth of your work. You can't look at it from the standpoint of, well, I'll raise it again next year, and then I'll raise it the year after that and after that, because what happens when one of those customers comes back to you and says, I need another one? And you tell them, oh, well, it's been 2 years. My work is now 3 times the price of what it was 2 years ago. Look, everybody understands inflation, but people are not going to accept a 300% price increase in that kind of a time frame. It's not going to happen, right? So my rule throughout almost all of my career, because when I was really young, I didn't know this lesson, but fortunately I got it pretty young. My rule is set my prices the right way the first time. Adjust them when the economy demands them be adjusted. And then if I am going to do something for less than my rate, the way that I am going to go about doing it is by either adding or subtracting what I'm giving or taking away, but I am not going to lower the rate. In fact, there have been many times in my career I have done work for free because the project sounded fun, and I wanted to do it. And the company or the client, they were willing to pay me money. They just couldn't afford my rate. But the moment I take that money, I have now shown them what is my real rate. That is a bad idea, okay? Alvaro actually makes a comment here, which is very good and kind of parallels what I've been saying. If you charge cheaply, your clients will recommend you because you charge cheaply. And that's very true, which means you're never going to get good clients that way. If you do a good job, your clients will recommend you because you do your job well. And that's the recommendation that you want, right? It is never a pat on the back for clients to recommend you because you're cheap and affordable. Just like a plumber, just like an electrician, people expect photography to be expensive. Good photography to be expensive. Now, I know a lot of you will say, I don't know, all the time people are like, well, what does it cost so much? Like, I don't understand why it costs so much. Now that everybody has a smartphone, people don't see the value. You're right. I know I just contradicted myself, didn't I? Not at all. People do not automatically see the value in photography that they used to. In the film days, when it was well known, most people couldn't develop film. Photography was actually a skill that required some effort to build. Now, thanks to smartphones, the general public doesn't see it that way. And look, there's no whining, there's no complaining. It's just evolution. You have to grow, you have to evolve. The world changes, so don't be a dinosaur. Change with it, right? So how do you justify that? Please, 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 please. It's so tempting to name it, but I won't. There's a couple, Facebook profiles that pop across my feeds every now and then where they post memes a lot, and I'd say probably 30% of the memes that they post are basically photographers complaining about clients, which is such a stupid thing, just a stupid thing, especially when you see that like 30 photographers shared that post, meaning their clients or potential clients have seen that post, right? You don't complain about your clients, and you can't tell your clients what something's worth or what something costs and then justify it. You tell people your rate, and they're going to look at your work and they're either going to see that value or they're not. So if you're dealing with client after client after client after client that thinks your rates are too high, that is not an indicator to lower your rates. That is telling you one of two things, and it's only one of two things. One, you're attracting the wrong clients, which means you're either marketing to the wrong people, or by not marketing, just the wrong people are showing up. But why would the wrong people show up? That brings us to the second thing. Your work is nowhere near as good as it needs to be. That's just the reality of the situation, gang. Right? All right, let me see if I'm not seeing a whole lot of questions come in here tonight, gang. This could be a short show. So Dan made a note here. I don't think Adobe needs customer photos to train AI. They could just use photos from outside the user database. Simple. I think you're kind of missing the point, Dan. If they did that, they would become a part of the same lawsuits that are already happening, and Adobe's not going to go out and seek legal action at this point. I mean, what you all have to understand is that all of these lawsuits, and I am not villainizing Getty Photos or any of the artists that have brought these lawsuits. So hear me out, gang, right? These lawsuits have now slowed down the development of AI. Now, slowed it down to a screeching halt, stopped it? No, of course not. But what it has meant is that, number one, these lawsuits are going to make the use of AI more expensive for those of us that want to use it, because these companies are probably going to have to try to build these AIs out either with smaller databases, or they're going to have to charge to recoup the money they'll need to spend to get input into their databases. Hopefully, and I mean this sincerely, hopefully some of these companies will be resourceful enough to start asking for photographers to volunteer imagery for them to build their databases from, which I think would actually be brilliant. And I have no doubt there would be hundreds of thousands of photographers around the world that would provide images for that purpose without being reimbursed, or maybe in exchange for being given free access to the database down the road. But I don't see Adobe doing anything that's going to draw bad will, because keep in mind, they're a publicly traded company. They have shareholders to contend with, and that's who they answer to first, and foremost. So I'm not villainizing Getty. I'm not villainizing these artists. It's actually, it's the balance. On one hand, it's a really good thing that they brought these lawsuits, because we do need to get some structure and some rules around how AI is built and what it's been built on. But again, if you read copyright law in its most basic form, and I'm not a lawyer, so don't take your legal advice from some idiot on YouTube, okay? I don't see anything in U.S. copyright law that says that these AIs have violated copyrights. The problem is with some of them, they have not written the AIs very well, so they're spitting out creations that still have people's watermarks on them and things like that. That's just really bad programming. And yeah, those people probably deserve a slap on the wrist and some fines. But beyond that, I don't see how it's copyright infringement. Now, I think Getty has a little bit more leverage in the sense that a lot of the images that they do share online are watermarked for editorial use only, and an AI is not, building things for editorial use. So again, this is going to take some time to get worked out. It good, bad, or otherwise, AI's coming, and it's going to be here, and AI generators are going to be here. And, just like with ChatGPT, they're starting to drop a lot of information now about kind of what their business model is going to be. And for people that want to be able to do the hardcore stuff with it, which we've all been able to play with for a little while now, it's actually going to be really expensive. This is a huge business tool. I guarantee down the road that ChatGPT is going to be worth bazillions. Okay. That doesn't mean the rest of us won't have access. It just means, we're going to have access to a little bit less of it. It's going to be a little bit more throttled, et cetera. But there's going to be a lot of learning that has to come, from all of this stuff. So let me just see here. Scrolling back upwards. Is there anything? Okay, it's no other questions. So I'll show you guys. Let me get this up on the screen. My behind the shot for you. Okay, and again, type in your questions, because this is not going to take me 20 minutes to do. So I'll gladly wrap up early tonight, gang. The shot that I want to share with you, it's the shot that is on the cover of tonight's show, and it's this one that you see here. And I picked this one, and by the way, I'm going to start doing one of these breakdowns every week. I picked this one simply because it breaks, it breaks a lot of rules. Let's use that phrase. What makes it interesting is that all of the light is behind the girl. All of it. There are no light sources in front of her. In fact, if you look closely at the eyes, you'll notice that there are no point source catch lights at all, right? So all the light is coming from behind. So the setup to do this, let me go ahead and bring the 3D software up on the screen here. And for this one, you'll have to ignore the image up above me. If you've seen me use the software before, it does a really good job of rendering the end result. I found a weakness in the software, and this by no means does it make it bad software. There's no reason that the software would have been programmed to be able to render this kind of lighting situation properly. This is kind of a crazy situation, right? But basically, the way this setup is done is with two lights aimed at a white background behind the subject. It's just that simple, right? So all the light is literally behind her. I've got two essentially V-flat white reflectors on either side, okay? Because I don't want any of these lights actually directly hitting her. You can see where the light comes in behind, right? And then in front of her, I've mounted two other reflectors. You can see one top, one bottom there. In fact, I'll come around from the back and let's turn off the background. So there you can see, right? one below, one above. So these lights, as they are hitting the white background, that light is bouncing forward into the box and then bouncing off of the two white reflectors. You can see the camera shooting through the gap back there, right? So what you have is a situation where, just like you see in the finished shot, the light starts to glow, your background blows out completely, and even edge details, even her shoulder, completely gone. Those of you that have a very traditional background in photography or who have been taught traditionally, whichever, will look at this image and it will make your head hurt. And that's okay. I love it. My client loved it. I've actually won an award with this picture. I make no apologies for it, okay? For me, I love the mood. I love the pureness of it. I love the simplicity of it. The makeup is actually kind of basic. Yeah, she's got a little bit of extra eyeshadow on to get the little tips going, but you can see lips are very simple. They're not built up. We didn't do anything crazy with the lips. It's just a matter of this young lady's got, these gorgeous blue eyes, really, really good face shape, and I wanted to try and do something that was almost on the verge because of those tips, those little wing tips when I saw them. I wanted to do something that was kind of almost on the verge of kind of like alien type feel, right? So it was shot with Godot's 8200 strobes behind the subject. And then from an exposure standpoint, and basically, ISO 200 and wide open on the lens, 2.8 lens, wide open, to be able to get enough light in to make the shot work. So that was how I made the shot for this week. Obviously, you don't have to go out and buy actual V-flats. They're really handy tools. I highly encourage them for anybody that's going to do studio work. But, basically any way that you can flag the lights as long as it's white on the inside. Do understand if you're doing DIY reflectors of any type, you always need to be paying attention to, are they actually white? In other words, they don't need to be a pure white, but if they're slightly aged or, they're not giving you that pure white light, well, then the problem is you're going to have, color balance issues in that regard. Okay? All right, gang. So listen, here's your last chance. I have shared with you everything I've got for tonight. So I'll go ahead and I will tell you one more thing about what my plans are with YouTube for those of you for the rest of the year. But other than that, I'm going to wrap up early. So if there's no questions, that's cool. And I will tell you, the fact that I've got no questions in here makes me very happy with what I'm about to do. So in general, YouTube is growing up. What does that mean? That means, and I had the opportunity, as you saw for the pictures earlier, I had the opportunity to spend some time chatting with some of the biggest influencers in the photography industry this past week. And one thing that I've noticed, but I thought it was just me, because I'm not kidding, I don't watch YouTube videos at all. I don't know what those others are doing until I sit down and talk to them, right? And I spent quite a bit of time talking with Unmish and Irene and Manny and some others. And one of the things that they are all experiencing is that view counts on YouTube are down dramatically. Not a little, dramatically. For me, this is kind of confirmation, honestly. I've been saying for a long time that YouTube is going to grow up and it's all going to slow down. In other words, the bottom is going to drop out of this influencer economy. And part of that is because people are realizing that influencers are salespeople. You have no idea how many times I was called a salesperson while I was an Olympus ambassador. All this is part of why I made that decision a year ago to step away from any kinds of sponsorships at all, period. I don't do them because I'm not a salesperson. And you guys know I don't have a lot of filters, so as it is, but I'm not going to be held accountable to a company to talk nice about them. I am going to be held accountable to you, the viewers. But here's the problem. Every one of you that's here I don't know why you're here. You should have been out taking pictures tonight. Look, I'm flattered that you find value in what I talk about, but that's not how you learn photography. It's simply not. You should have been out using your camera. You should have been shooting, period. There's no other excuse. If you want to improve, stop watching damn YouTube videos, period, right? So I am going to do the last frame every week. It's going to continue. But I am putting zero prep into the last frame. So each week's episode will be just like tonight's. And if it only takes 30 minutes, it'll only take 30 minutes. But I will read news headlines that I find value, which this was a good week. Other weeks, there's nothing that I find value in the photography news. I'll share one image a week. I'll show you a lighting diagram of how I made it and give you any tips behind it. I will go ahead and I will remind you all of my teaching opportunities, and then that's it. But I am bringing something back that some of you will enjoy, but don't get too excited because it's not going to be the way you want it. I am already working on several YouTube tutorials, something that I have not done in over 2 years. I'm not going to be doing tutorials weekly or every other week. If you're really lucky, I'll do 12 of them in 2023, meaning one a month. That's it, okay? Just like 90% of the tutorials that I did in the past, they are evergreen tutorials, meaning they are things about photography that will be the same 20 years from now as they are now. So, and interestingly enough, in talking with the influencers whose view counts are down, in looking at my own channel, view counts are down. I have increasing view counts on my old evergreen tutorials, meaning when people come and search for a technique and how to do it, those tutorials are getting views, and they're still being viewed, and they're still being viewed at a really pretty good clip. So I have an opportunity ahead of me, which some of you will be excited about. I can only tell you about one half of it for now. And that is, I am going to be doing because I'm a fool, 2 photography books. The one I can tell you about is a basically beginner's foundational photography book, which a lot of you, unfortunately, will think you don't need, and you need it more than others. But it's going to cover all the foundation stuff. But here's the thing. Unlike other photography books that are out there, because you know me, be different, do different. I'm not going to do the same old crap that's been done. Why do that? Why write a book about that, right? No, this is photography for now. Photography in 2023, 2024. This is taking into account mirrorless digital cameras and how they've really changed photography, and the fact that photography hasn't changed around them, and it should have. So it's going to also be a very new approach to learning photography for beginners, and a very different kind of resource for people that kind of think they know what they're doing, but they really don't. The second book, I can't tell you about that because it's a really cool idea. So there's an idea behind it, a concept behind it that I'm not willing to share because it's never been done before. And so this is going to be something that I'm very, very excited about, and have already started quite a bit of work on that. So neither one of them will be out until probably at least mid-2024. They're going to take some time. I am going to do them right. But that is where a lot of my time and attention are going to go this year. So you will get some tutorials in the process because quite a few things that I'm going to be writing about are things that when I shoot the sample images and that, they're actually going to be very easy to turn into, tutorials. But yeah, and Joe, listen, I'm not going to pick on you too much, and I appreciate that. You're here to watch just in case something comes up that we cover in the Talk Knowledge group. Joe, stop being afraid to miss something. You need to focus on your cameras, man. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, but you do, okay? I know a lot of you, you come to this or you come to the Talk Knowledge group and you think you came away with a cool little nugget. No, you didn't, because you don't go pick up your cameras and use it right away, right? Too many of you have too much information in your heads and you can't do shit with it. Sorry, but that's how it is. period. Start doing things with it. And your photography will go poof, big time, right? Through the roof, because that's the only way it happens. Okay. Guy Wright, what are some good resources for explanation on sensor pixel focal length debate? Why do you need that, Guy? I'm curious. I'll hang in for another few seconds. I want to know why you need that. And when you write back, tell me what you're shooting now in terms of, full frame, whatever. Because here's the thing. When you're hearing debate in photography, you know what that is? That's a bunch of gearheads that can't do shit with cameras. That's exactly what it is. So hopefully you're not one of those guys, because I have no patience for that, right? So there's no debate. That's the thing. There's no debate about sensors, sensor size. There's no debate. Guy, for practically 5 years, I worked with Olympus cameras. And I proved over and over and over and over again, Guy, that I could do anything with a micro four thirds sensor that anybody else could do with a full frame. So where's the debate? What is there to debate? So how did I do that? Did I have some magic piece of software? Was there some sorcery involved? No. You know what did it, Guy? You know how I did everything with a micro four thirds that I used to do with a full frame? And you know how my images look every bit as good? How my micro four thirds images were on a 48-foot wide billboard with no noise? How they were printed 8 feet wide and put up on a trade show booth for thousands of people to examine? How did I do that? It's called good photography. That's how I did it. So if people would actually put in the time and the effort to learn foundational skills of photography, there's no debate. Period. There's facts. Does a full frame sensor provide a higher quality image in a side-by-side test than a micro four thirds? Yes, that's a fact. But are our eyes going to be able to process that? Very little of that difference. That's a fact. Additionally, all of that is mute when either of those images are going to be displayed 1080 pixels square on a phone, which is where most of you wind up putting your pictures. So why debate, Guy? Why do we have to debate? You sound like, when I was growing up, I was never into cars other than I needed a car to get me from point A to point B, as a teenager. But, then there's this whole group of kids that, they're the motorheads and, they're debating over horsepower and all this shit. And it's just like, why? It's a damn car. It's got to go from here to there. Like, why do we care? So, like, if that's what you're into, cool, that's what you're into. But you know what? You're never going to become an accomplished photographer that way. You're not. Because you're wasting time and energy on invaluable information. There is no debate. Why do we have to debate things? Right? I mean, if you're worried about that, why not just go out and buy the biggest camera with the biggest sensor and all that kind of stuff? Period. Right? So, anyway, coolly, will I sign them? Yes, I will sign them when the time comes. Okay, yes, these will be printed physical books, old school. Okay, only one of them will be available as an ebook, and that's the one that I told you about. That's the one about beginning photography. The other book, no, it's a printed only book. When we get closer and I can talk about it, you'll understand why it's printed only. Okay. So yeah, Guy, I mean, sorry, I got to keep it real with you, but there's no debate, and I'm not going to give you a resource. Are there places out there where you can find all that shit? You go to like DP Review, whatever. But man, I don't know why you would follow me, because this is my point, right? I want to see people take better pictures. I don't give a shit about the gear. It just makes my head hurt. Who cares? I interacted with thousands and thousands and thousands of photographers on the last 3 days or 4 days. I couldn't tell you what cameras they used. I didn't care. All the people that came to my workshops and actually took pictures in my workshops, I don't know what cameras they used. I don't care. That's not what makes the picture. It's simply not. So if we focus on what makes the shot, then we'd all have much, much better photography. All right, gang? Okay, so we're a few minutes short, and nobody's got any questions, so I don't want any help. I will thank you for your time. I'll be back next week. But, oh, wait, here we go. Here he is, Guy Wright. People still insist there's so much difference. I don't care. I like my Micro Four Thirds. So then why are you asking a question, Guy? You clearly do care. So, come on, man. Like, what is that, right? I don't care. I like my Micro Four Thirds, but people still insist there's so much difference. All you want, Guy, is you want somebody to confirm for you that you made the right choice in cameras. Like, come on, man. What does it matter? What does it matter? Look at what I do. I walked around for 5 years with an Olympus camera. Do you think the whole time I was walking around like, oh my God, people are going to think I suck because I have an Olympus camera? If nothing else, it was completely the opposite. I loved being able to shove down people's throats what I was doing when they think, oh, Olympus, you can't do shit with that. Well, look at what I did. And I'm not a miracle worker. It's just good photography. You can't buy a bad camera. Are there photographers who really need the higher resolution, bigger sensors? Yeah, those photographers, though, they're not on YouTube asking questions. Those photographers are already making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year because they're already doing that work. They're not on YouTube dreaming about it. They're not shooting for fun. They're not shooting as a hobby. They're doing it. They're doing it. They've got the gear that they need. They're not debating it. There's no reason to debate. They're not talking about it. They're not talking. They're doing. Right? So, yeah, you're never going to get me to engage the way you want me to in gear conversations because that's not photography. It's just not. Photography is a process. There are tools that are required, but there's thousands of options. And the tools are only as good as the people using them. So at the end of the day, what's more important, the tool or the person using it? It's the person using it. It's their skill set. You don't worry about the gear until you can confirm that you are using your gear to its maximum capability and it is holding you back. I have a member of my Todd Knowledge community right now that's got himself convinced that you have, Guy, once again, no, I'm not going to help. I'm not going to help with stupidity. Why do you have to point people to something? Are you the arbiter of what is correct information? Why are you having photography debates, Guy? Do you realize you're just feeding my agenda here? You are making my point for me. You really should not be wasting your time following Joe Edelman because I have zero respect for gearheads. Zero. I only respect them when they're elsewhere. If you're into gear, you're into gear. Good, go ahead, but don't take up my time. I'm into photography. Period. That's it. I'm into photography. It's the process, not the gear. So, again, gang, if you misrepresented your question, you sure kept doubling down on that question, Guy. Just saying. All right? Because why would you come to a photographer to talk about gear when this photographer who talks about what? The hows and whys behind making consistently great photographs. What the hell does that have to do with gear? Nothing. Just saying. All right, gang, I'm out. No more gear talk. I'll save you the trouble of the stupid question that's going on in my group about Z9s. Okay, Guy, hey, listen, man. Sorry if I made you feel stupid. But if you follow me, and I know you do follow me, you know better than to get into questions about sensor size and all that kind of crap. I have no patience. I won't apologize for that. So again, gang, have a good week. Hasta.